MotoGP 2025 has turned into one of the most gripping and controversial seasons in modern memory. From Marc Márquez's extraordinary resurgence with Ducati, Jorge Martin's battles to defend his crown, to Francesco Bagnaia's uneven and often frustrating form, every single race has delivered a narrative that feels larger than the points tally alone. What makes this year so captivating is not just the on-track action, but the sense that MotoGP itself is standing at a crossroads, torn between tradition and technology. After the Austrian Grand Prix, that tension reached a boiling point with the unexpected return of a familiar face two-time world champion, Casey Stoner. His voice, absent for years, has shaken the paddock more than any duel at 350 km per hour. For Stoner, the problem is no longer simply about who wins or loses, but whether MotoGP is in danger of losing its very soul. Stoner's critique zeroes in on the man who currently defines this era, Marc Márquez. Since joining the factory Ducati, Team Marquez has unleashed a level of control that has left the rest of the grid scrambling to keep pace. At 32, he is not merely stacking up victories, but completely redefining the boundaries of what can be done on a MotoGP bike. Watching from the Red Bull Ring paddock for the first time since 2022, Stoner openly admitted that even in his own prime, he would have struggled against this version of Marquez. He observed that against the Marquez of years past, he might have had a chance, but today, Marquez has something extra. Something forged from a different era of racing. That admission carried weight, cause it showed just how much respect one champion holds for another, and how dramatically the sport has changed within a single generation. This is where the debate deepens. Stoner stressed that Marquez's advantage is not only raw talent, but also the experience of having raced in a time when electronics did not dictate every corner exit. Riders like Marquez and Dani Pedrosa still carry the muscle memory of throttle control, slide management, and grip balance without electronic assistance. This gives Marquez an edge over the younger generation Bagnaia, Martin, and Bezzecchi, who have grown up in an era where software masks the raw danger of the machine. Bagnaia, for example, built his reputation on precision and consistency, but Marquez thrives on improvisation, turning chaos into victory. Stoner sympathized with Bagnaia's plight, yet reminded that such struggles, if endured and learned from, can ultimately build a stronger rider. In a way, he framed 2025 not only as a battle for titles, but as a battle for identity of riders, of teams, and of the sport itself. Inside Ducati, the situation has become volatile. Bagnaia, once their unquestioned leader, now finds himself overshadowed by his own teammate. Meanwhile, Jorge Martin, last year's hero and future star, has been enduring the darkest period of his career. Stoner, drawing on his own experiences, explained that the true character of a rider emerges not in moments of triumph, but in seasons of hardship. He noted that Martin's struggles mirror the low points Marquez once faced, when injury and doubt seemed to have ended his era, only for him to come roaring back stronger. For Stoner, there is no reason Martin cannot return to title contention in the near future if he can survive this storm. His message was clear: champions are not defined only by their victories, but by their ability to endure the hardest seasons without breaking. Marco Bezzecchi's trajectory tells a similar story. Once regarded as a future title challenger, he has been unable to fully express his talent within Aprilia, constrained by the limits of electronic systems. Stoner recalled his own frustrations in 2012, when he felt the joy of riding was being stolen by machines that interfered too much. Electronics, in his view, have dulled the artistry of racing. He went as far as to argue that MotoGP is now producing champions out of engineers instead of riders, a statement that cuts directly into the sport's identity. For longtime fans, this observation resonates deeply. Many remember an era when watching MotoGP meant seeing riders fighting both the track and their bikes, not just managing complex software settings. The introduction of a new stability control system at Austria brought his critique into sharp focus. Marketed as a safety measure against high-side crashes, Stoner dismissed it as misguided. He argued that these systems are making 300 horsepower, machines far too easy to ride, erasing fear and risk, and encouraging riders to push recklessly in other areas, particularly the front end. Crashes from front-end loss, he emphasized, are far more violent. His point seemed validated almost immediately, with practice sessions at the Red Bull Ring producing multiple incidents, including repeated runoffs from Enea, Bastianini to Stoner. This was evidence that electronics do not eliminate instability, they merely shift it elsewhere. For him, it is not a question of whether technology can reduce mistakes, but whether it destroys the skill that once defined the greatest riders. Looking to the future, MotoGP has already announced sweeping regulation changes for 2027. Smaller 850cc engines, lighter bikes, reduced aerodynamics, and a ban on ride height devices. Many fans and insiders hope this will reset the sport and bring back purer racing, but Stoner remains unconvinced. He argued that lighter bikes shorten braking distances, which paradoxically reduces opportunities for overtaking. At the same time, slower top speeds combined with aerodynamic turbulence could create races where passing becomes even harder. To him, MotoGP is walking the same dangerous path that Formula One once did, over-engineering the spectacle until the racing itself suffers. His comparison to Formula One is particularly striking, because F1 nearly lost its audience in an era dominated by technology over talent, and only recovered when it reinvented its rules to prioritize wheel-to-wheel racing again. What troubles Stoner most is the loss of variety that once defined the championship. In past eras, Yamaha's strength lay in corner speed and grip, Ducati in raw power, Honda in balance, Suzuki in braking stability. This mix ensured that circuits played two different manufacturers' strengths, producing a natural ebb and flow to the season. Now, he argues, electronic standardization has flattened those identities, leaving races where bikes and, by extension, the riders feel too similar. The spectacular images of riders wrestling their machines, fighting slides, and controlling wheelies have been replaced with smoother, engineered performances that lack raw drama. For many, this homogenization is not just a technical issue, but a cultural one. It strips MotoGP of the colorful rivalries and contrasting philosophies that once made it unique. The paddock has been split, by Stoner's words. Some riders and team members agree wholeheartedly, while others argue that technological evolution is inevitable. But what makes Stoner's critique impossible to ignore is that it comes from someone who turned his back on MotoGP at just 27, disillusioned with the direction it was taking. Now at 39, healthy and at peace in retirement, he has nothing to prove and no stake to protect, only a passion for racing in its purest form. His warning that we're making champions out of engineers, not riders, may be the most important message MotoGP hears this decade. MotoGP in 2025 stands as a paradox. On one side, Marc Márquez is delivering one of the most astonishing seasons of dominance in history, showcasing the raw human brilliance that makes motorsports so compelling.